Let's say we have a hospital that's doing $500,000 worth of income. And our product sales are $135,000 at, and represents 27% of our gross income. And the contribution margin is basically $67,500. It's 50% of what those sales are. Okay, so that's the contribution margin is the amount of money that we're making associated with selling these products. If we were in concept to say we're going to stop selling products in our veterinary hospital, what does that do to the profitability? So that if our hospital gross income was $500,000 with product sales, and we just kind of take out the 135, our income without the product sales goes to 365. Everybody follow so far? We basically said we're not selling any more products. Our variable costs are going to change because we're going to have less variable costs associated with the fact that we no longer have the costs associated, we no longer have $67,500 in costs associated with the purchase of these products since we don't have any more product purchases. So our costs go from 125 down to 57.5. So we reduced our costs in direct proportion to the decrease in sales that we have based upon the fact that we don't have product sales in our hospital anymore. However, what we refer to as fixed costs don't change whatsoever. Did the cost of our rent change? Did the cost of our utilities change? Did the cost of the telephone change? Did the cost of our insurance change? Not one iota. So we still have to drive profits, or we have to derive revenue through the practice to still continue to make the same money to cover these costs, right? For which product sales, we're doing a good piece of that. And in which case, don't change based upon the fact that we decide not to sell products anymore. We can't reduce the size of our facility, right? If we have that pharmacy area in our hospital, we'll probably fill it with something else if it wasn't being utilized for the pharmacy. Our staff control isn't going to decrease at all. We're going to still use and keep the same amount of staff because we still have to provide veterinary services. And so that cost isn't going to change at all. And so basically what happens, if you think about this to the extreme, our profit can actually drop from 125 down to 57.5, or we can have effect on the bottom line by exactly that profit margin. Okay? That disappears, everything else stays the same. In concept or theory, would any of us want any of our product sales to leave our hospital? The answer's got to be no. Okay? So as much as we want to deal with some of the competitive nature and forces that we seem to be having to deal with the internet, with catalog houses, with the TV commercials that we see, the inevitable fact is it's going to have some impact. It has had some impact on overall product sales in most veterinary hospitals, and I'm sure everybody would agree that having to deal with the internet pharmacies and people coming in and wanting their scripts and not buying that same product out of your hospital has been nothing but a pain in the neck. And it is a fact of life. But for the most part, I'd have to say that we haven't seen a significant overall drop in product sales in most hospitals. Maybe they haven't increased as much, but we're not seeing that much of a drop. I think practices are fighting to maintain those levels of volumes in terms of getting back to their clients to make sure that they are not losing those product sales to the extent that they can, educating their clients to make sure they have them understand and realize that, hey, it's not a great deal. It's not as great a deal as you maybe were led to believe it is. And I don't think we want to cave in. The purpose of this conversation is to say, you know what, guys, we shouldn't be caving in. We should be trying to maintain those sales. We should be fighting for those sales to the extent that we can. Some of the other alternatives that have been offered more recently, I'd say maybe in the last 5 years, as to something different than those product sales. Maybe from a company that's offering to ship the product to your client, no different than an internet pharmacy, and is willing to pay you a dispensing fee as opposed to your normal markup, has been kind of an alternative. But my experience tells me that the dispensing fee is nowhere near what your margin was, and if you see the extent that the margin can have on overall profitability, that's probably not a route that you want to take. So, we got to look for some alternatives that actually make some sense and work from us in terms of maintaining profitability as opposed to letting some of that profitability disappear. And this is a perfect example to kind of emphasize the point that, product sales are vulnerable, but we need to maintain them and we need to make sure that we're not losing them.